know about you, but I've kind of fallen off anime. Every time I've looked up this season's anime, it all just sort of blends together. Whether it's the newest show everyone says is hype, or any other single adjective used to describe it. From my experience, this often just means blazing fast pace with little or no character development or world building. There's a constant rush to get through these plot points without allowing the story to breathe or for the viewers to connect with their characters. I can't help but feel in this fast-paced environment, anime is losing its ability to develop depth in its characters and its world. When I look back at older shonen, I can't help but feel that they wouldn't stand the test of time without these quiet, introspective moments. Something like Jiraiya's death wouldn't have hit nearly as hard without scenes like Naruto talking to Iruka about his death later on. It's these small, intimate moments that humanize characters and give their actions weight. Without that connection, these emotional moments fall flat. I mean, look how fast we got Shinjuku Showdown in JJK, and how I feel Nobara's death didn't hit as hard as it should have. We barely got her interacting with characters before it happened, and I can't think of a single time of her talking with Gojo. One thing I really appreciate about the Chainsaw Man anime was how it took the time to add these little moments like Aki's morning routine. It's just a mundane, everyday activity, but there's just something about seeing characters engaged in such an ordinary task that makes them feel more real. It's these small, humanizing details that really deepen my emotional investment in the characters. A single, quiet scene of a character brushing their teeth and having a cup of coffee can speak volumes about their humanity in a series as chaotic as Chainsaw Man. These moments don't move the plot forward, but they help make the world feel more lived in. Even though Chainsaw Man Part 1 can be a little too fast-paced for my taste, it's these moments that are a stark contrast to the rush pacing I often find in all series, where everything seems to be designed to push forward with as much intensity as possible, sometimes at the expense of character depth and emotional beats. With so much anime, it's becoming increasingly difficult to find series I genuinely connect with. The sheer volume is overwhelming. It often feels like a chore just to sift through endless shows that all feel the same. Pressure to keep audiences engaged result in shows that might be visually impressive but ultimately forgettable. With so many new anime being released all at once, the truly unique stories can get buried under layers of noise. It's not impossible to find gems amidst all that noise though. Anime like Apothecary Diaries is currently airing, takes its time, allows the audience to absorb the detail of its world, and of course you have the GOAT, Shinichiro Watanabe, coming out with Lazarus later this year, which is going to be hard to ignore. His track record with shows like Cowboy Bebop and Samurai Champloo set the bar high, but despite shows like these, most anime still get buried in the background, or even worse, are locked behind specific streaming services. I'm looking at you, Disney Plus, with summertime rendering. Moreover, in this day and age, with anime being more mainstream, company execs now more than ever just want to turn out as much anime as they can without giving the proper time it takes for animators to work. The crunch to put out content quickly often compromises the quality of the animation. Just look at Blue Lock Season 2 for instance. The earlier episodes were riddled with poor animation, making it look like they used PowerPoint to animate, where with the last few episodes we saw significant improvement. There was this TikTok made by Martin Reyes, a freelance animator who worked on Blue Lock, where he spoke about how the production committee rushed the timeline, prioritizing profits over the well-being of the animators. Reyes shed a light on the fact that the production was pushed forward despite the overwhelming pressure it put on the artist. Rather than focusing on quality, the executives were only thinking about maximizing revenue. This isn't an isolated incident either. We know that animators in many studios, especially places like Mappa, are routinely overworked, especially during the production of JJK Season 2, where reports surfaced about the extreme condition animators were working under. These studios have a long-standing reputation of crunch culture, pushing animators to the breaking point to meet a deadline. The sad reality is that there just isn't enough time allocated for animators to fully complete their work in the level of detail and polish. The result, an anime that often feels more static than a fluid animated series should be. Instead of showing the incredible artistry these animators are capable of, we get rushed products that only scratch the surface of its potential. The sad irony is that rushed deadlines and poor working conditions might ultimately harm the anime industry's reputation, driving away fans. Yet as long as production committees continue to prioritize profits, it seems the talent of these animators will continue to go underutilized. I also think anime, like many other creative industries, have become too reliant on familiar tropes. Mangaka seem to take inspiration primarily from other anime rather than a wide variety of sources. As a result, we end up seeing the same characters, storylines, and themes recycled over and over again, just with slight variation. For example, the success of Sword Art Online has led to the influx of similar protagonists, many of whom mirror the bland OP archetype, and the proliferation of the isekai genre. These characters often lack the development needed to stand out, making them feel like carbon copies of one another. Also, the influence of Bleach can be felt on newer series, with mangaka citing Bleach as an influence. It often leads to those mangaka falling into the same pitfalls as Bleach. like having too many characters and not enough development for them. Instead of pushing boundaries, too many shows seem content to offer slight variations on the same formulas, making them feel derivative and uninspired. Of course, there are mangaka who break the mold and look outside of anime for inspiration. Tatsuki Fujimoto, whose passion for film is evident in Chainsaw Man. I mean, just look at how many references there are in the opening to the anime. The storytelling is often unpredictable, blending genres and experimenting with visuals and narrative styles. It's this kind of creativity that stands out in an industry increasingly filled with derivative content. Fujimoto proves that there's still creativity in this medium, but unfortunately they remain the exception rather than the rule. Another contributing factor to this stagnation is the pressure of the weekly release schedule in magazines like Weekly Shonen Jump. The relentless pace demands that manga produce chapters on a tight deadlines, leaving little room for rest or reflection. This grueling work schedule means that creators don't always have the time or mental space to properly plan and execute their series. This lack of downtime has led to several controversial endings, such as the conclusion of JJK, where it felt rushed and unsatisfying. With the weekly release cycle, there's often no opportunity for the kind of detailed planning that can result in a satisfying, well-rounded conclusion. The pressure to hit deadlines may cause mangaka to sacrifice narrative depth and resolution for the sake of simply moving on to the next chapter. This rush can lead to an unsatisfactory experience for fans who've invested years into a series, only to be left with an ending that feels incomplete. The demand for constant content production is putting a strain not only on creativity, but also the bodies of mangaka. They are often forced to prioritize speed over substance, which in turn diminishes the overall impact of the series. This trend not only affects the anime adaptation that follows, but also the long-term legacy of these works. As more and more creators are churning out rushed endings, we risk losing the quality that makes anime such a powerful medium. The industry as a whole seems trapped in a cycle that values efficiency and quantity over artistic exploration. All of what I said throughout this video could also just be chalked up to me having watched too much anime over the years, and perhaps it not hitting the same as it used to. It's a bit of a bittersweet feeling really. I have been watching anime all my life, from the days when I would stay up late watching Dragon Ball Z on Cartoon Network as a kid, to watching whatever series I could find as a teenager on whatever sketchy website I could find. I've experienced multiple eras of anime, each with its own trends and styles, but as time goes on, it's become harder to recapture that sense of excitement and wonder I once had. It feels like the magic it once had has worn off, and now I can't help but approach every new series with a critical eye. It's not necessarily that anime has gotten worse, but more I've gotten used to it. As a lifelong fan, I'm able to recognize the inspirations that newer series draw from. I find myself constantly identifying elements from older series in newer popular titles. I can see how Chainsaw Man channels the influence of Fooly Cooly and Devilman Crybaby. While it's fascinating to see how these works pay homage to each other, it also makes it harder to just sit back and enjoy the show for what it is. Instead of getting lost in the world, I can't help but analyze the choices that remind me of something I've seen before. It pulls me out of the experience and leaves me feeling more detached than immersed. When I was younger, I didn't have the same knowledge about the medium, so I was able to experience anime more purely. The thrill of discovering something new and different was enough to keep me hooked. But now, after watching countless shows, I've reached a point where it feels like I've seen it all before. I still enjoy some series of course, but it's hard to let go of that cynical part of me. You know, it's strange when something you loved for so long stops surprising you in the same way. It's not that anime is inherently worse than it used to be. In fact, it could be better than ever. Maybe I've just seen too many series that follow similar formulas or tropes. The nostalgia I once had for discovering new shows has been replaced with a more jaded sense of recognition. In the end, it's a struggle between wanting to recapture that feeling of excitement and also the recognition of the evolution of the medium. While I still find joy in watching anime, it's no longer with that unbridled enthusiasm that once consumed me. The more I watch, the more I can't help but see the influences, the recycled tropes, and sometimes predictable patterns. This is the first time I've written a script for a video, so I apologize that it sounds pretty bad and pretentious. So even though it's pretty bad, I thank you for watching. I plan on doing more videos on this channel to get back into video editing. Also, if you liked the background music, check the description below for my other channel.